You thought you hit something and you didn't. You hit the wrong one. Nothing like doing that. All right. So, welcome to hit the wrong column. Welcome to Thursdays with Niko on a Friday. And when Niko joins us, there'll be a couple of things to talk about. Obviously, the signing of Sean Johnson to Toronto FC. Matt Freese now with NYC, thinking that he was either going to be a 1A or a 1B with Sean Johnson. Now Sean Johnson's in Toronto. Matt Freese looks like he's the number one in NYC. So you've got that going on. We have the announcement from CONCACAF and CONMEBOL that looks like Copa America in the next cycle is going to be here in this hemisphere. So very, very cool news there. Wanted to get Niko's thoughts on that and anything else on his mind as we roll forward here in training camps. And training camp for Seattle means that they are overseas and they are getting ready for their time in the Club World Cup. So looking forward to catching up with Niko on that. And fill it in, John. Wow. Okay. So Sean, fill it in. Let's see. So it's City. What's going on? I don't know the FA Cup score at the moment. So let's see. Let's get into the scores here and see what's going on with our friends at the Composite Odds portal. That's one of the things we didn't get into this morning was FA Cup and getting prepared for that with a match involving Arsenal and Manchester City. 30 minutes in, no score as we're talking here. Bunch of matches tomorrow. And Manchester City, by the way, came into this match at a minus 175. City. Let's see. We got 3, 6, 9, 10, 11 matches tomorrow in the FA Cup. Leicester's a big favorite at Walsall. Leeds a favorite at Accrington Stanley, who I believe beat Boreham Wood to get to this point. Blackburn a favorite at home against Birmingham. West Brom a favorite on the road at Bristol City. Fulham a minus 208 hosting Sunderland. Burnley at a plus 125 at Ipswich. Luton Town a minus on the 208 against Grimsby Town. Sheffield Wednesday a favorite at a minus 217. Southampton minus 196 against Blackpool. Spurs on the road at Preston North End a minus 278. Manchester United at a minus 714 hosting Reading. And on Sunday, 3 matches, Brighton, Liverpool. That one's, Brighton is a plus 164, so they're a slight dog at home in the FA Cup. Stoke at a minus 141 with Stevenage. Wrexham apparently getting the big treatment from the 4-letter. Correspondence, pregame, everything going on the sidelines there. Wrexham hosting Sheffield United. Sheffield United's a minus 118. Monday, Derby and West Ham. West Ham's minus 123. So pick of the week. I did. Friday. Oh no, I did that at the end of the show this morning, Sean. I did Friday. What, you didn't hang out long enough to hear me say that on the morning show? I did it this morning. Okay, so Friday. There's your there it is. Where is the enthusiasm? What do you mean, where's the enthusiasm? Okay, so Niko Moreno going to join us here in just a sec. As I see, and I can see him in a Q speaker, so he's adjusting his camera to make sure that he's styling and profiling. So we welcome in Niko. So Niko, since it is the last day of the work week before we get into everything, traditionally what I do is I celebrate the day by saying Friday, and everybody's wondering where my enthusiasm was and getting ready for Thursdays with Niko on a Friday. So, welcome, my friend.
Welcome, man. Thank you for having me as always. It is Friday. I have already started my weekend with. I'm not drinking coffee right now. Let's just say that. Made myself a nice little beverage. Had some good lunch. Getting ready for a big weekend, and I can. I'm with the Friday.
Well, glad that you are celebrating after lunchtime, or celebrating with lunchtime. That's the way it always should be. Got a couple of topics that I wanted to get into you with this week. First and foremost, we'll talk about MLS, and there are a couple of player moves that I wanted to get into with you. But late this morning on the morning show, strategic partnership between CONMEBOL and CONCACAF, a strategic collaboration agreement. The Copa America will be played in the CONCACAF region. It will include all 10 CONMEBOL national teams and 6 CONCACAF guest teams that will have to qualify. CONCACAF W Gold Cup in 2024 is going to include 8 CONCACAF women's national teams and 4 CONMEBOL guests. And the confederations will create a new competition that will include the participation of the best men's clubs in South America and CONCACAF. CONMEBOL Copa America is going to be played in the U.S. in the summer of 2024. What'd you think?
I think it's great. I think it was written in the water. We had talked about it. It was rumored for a very long time. I said in this show that I had been told that it was not even Plan B. It was Plan A. It was just about how it was going to get done. I'm sure that everybody's got to get a piece of the pie, and that's probably what a lot of that negotiation was like. But I love it. I think everybody wins. Especially the U.S. national team, because this is like a dress rehearsal to the World Cup. Some people were talking about, might it be more beneficial to have played, in South America or elsewhere. But I think the opposite. I think this is going to be a challenge for the United States, as it always is, as it was in Centenario, where you're going into stadiums where, yes, you're in the United States, but, in California, you have a stadium full of Colombians. And if you go down to L.A., Mexico or whatever, Miami, New York, there is a big fan base of South Americans all around this country. So it's going to be difficult, and it's going to be helpful for that U.S. national team in regards to the soccer level, the exhibition, the fans, the media. I'll just go ahead and say it. There's no place better to do it than in the United States, with the amenities, with the stadiums, the accessibility, and the resources that are brought in by this country and everything that surrounds it. So I'm excited. I'm happy. I love the fact that they added this little Nations League caveat that the top 6 teams will go through. I think that's great. Add competition, make people earn it. I think it's fantastic.
Well, and that's the thing, is like, I think folks are already sitting there saying, yeah, the U.S. is in it, they're hosting it. Well, they've still got to qualify, knowing full well that, unless they fall down the flight of stairs, or it's like the end of the end of Pitch Perfect, where you've got or Pitch Perfect 2, or whichever one it was. I think it was Pitch Perfect 2, where you have to slide down the stairs and everybody's graduating, and you're grabbing onto the Captain America shield, and you just go flying down the stairs and collapse, and you go, crushed it. Like Rebel Wilson did. But no, you still got to qualify, but the anticipation is, unless you really fall down flat on your face, the big names and the big dogs are going to be a part of this in 2024.
Yeah, unless you screw the pooch, you should be fine. I mean, this team has the talent level. And yes, federation's in disarray, and there's no sporting director, and there's no coach, kind of. Will Greg be back? Will he not? Is Hudson going to be the man for the next 6 months or so? I don't know. But regardless of, I believe that this team has enough to me and you could take that team on and do decent in Nations League, because that's just what the area, the conference, and CONCACAF is like at this moment.
Well, and since you have opened that door, we'll go ahead and open the door. Once again, yesterday, if my days are starting to run together, yesterday it was announced Ernie Stewart, he's going to PSV Eindhoven. Brian McBride, his tenure is ending. I think Ernie Stewart, if memory serves, mid-February. McBride is at the end of the month. Technically, and this is how it is. Technically, Greg Berhalter's contract ended at the end of the calendar year. So he is under consideration for the full-time job, which right now belongs to Anthony Hudson, which I'm sure is giving Colorado Rapids fans a bunch of nightmares from his tenure there. But Hudson right now in charge of the, as Bart Keeler from the Soccer for US pod refers to it, Camp Cupcake. That's going on right now. You've got the substitute teacher in right now, and so you got stuff you've got to sort through, but that was the announcement yesterday. We now have dates for the departure of Ernie Stewart, which was the surprise, and Brian McBride at the end of the month.
I mean, you got the substitute, really, because Luchi Gonzalez should be the substitute of this one, but, he ended up getting a better gig, but at the end of the day, you're right, and that's the worrisome component here, because of everything that's coming so quickly, right? I mean, we have a World Cup that is coming 3 years. You have a Copa America that you want to use as what I just said, a dress rehearsal, and yet you have no idea what's going to happen because the sporting director is supposed to figure out who the head coach is. Greg Berhalter has not been dismissed by any means. There's still an investigation being done about the telenovela that happened. We don't need to go over that once again. Right. But at the end of the day, it's difficult for the players because I'm of the sense, John, that you can't just destroy and rebuild. I think you have to use the foundation of a lot of the great things that happen. And you can listen to SoccerBar if you want to hear this in Spanish. But that was my whole point of this, is that I don't like people, or I'm not of the belief of those that believe you got to just blow it up, that everything that Greg Berhalter did was terrible, and you got to find new ways to use this talent group. I don't. I think that you need to continue to build from there. So it's going to take some time. Hudson's just the guy that's currently there. Nobody wants him, of course, but that's just the cards he was dealt. But it does worry me because I feel like this United States team took a big step forward. They're coming from their best exhibition in a World Cup. They looked fantastic. They changed a lot of aspects. And I would hate to see them take 1 or 2 steps back as you try to figure out what to do with this whole federation.
But all right, so and this is a point that we had this morning, so let me bring it forward. Right now, with this camp that you have in January, and then you've got Nations League in March, I believe, if I remember the conversation correctly with Bart. And then you have the summer camp. And I mean that in the fact that it is a camp in the summer. It is not summer camp where you're just kind of kicking back and you're at the edge of the pool waiting on Adult Swim. But right now in the interim, you're in a place as you're leading toward the qualifying for Copa America and getting in there and getting ready for 26. Right now, aren't you? The point that was made by Bart this morning, you're okay right now with what's going on early here in 2023. Yes, the fact that you waited until you had the press conference yesterday, and Ernie Stewart, the new sporting director, the new Ernie Stewart will be the one to decide who's the head coach. Yes, you could have started that process if you knew that Ernie Stewart was going to be leaving back in 2022. So when you had this announcement yesterday, you could have already been off and running with a coach. But at the same time, it was posited that you're okay with this. It's one of those rare instances, I guess, where because of where the schedule is, everything is, while it's not optimal, it's not horrible, if that makes any sense. When it comes to getting a coach, having a coach in, getting the philosophy, you're still in the okay zone in as much as you would like to have somebody in place.
Yeah, I guess you're right. That's a decent point. Honestly, if I was thinking about continuity at this point, I might give Greg Berhalter a short deal and just say, hey, you're going to take this over until the new sporting directors decide upon, and then that person will either like what you are selling and can believe in what you are, teaching and what you've been able to achieve and reach, or he'll just kick you to the curb. Uh, just because at least there be some continuity, you could do a little bit of a process and get somewhere rather than have to wait. But I mean, you're right. At this point, there are many ways to get around to where we where everybody wants to see this team on, and you hope that the talent level and the group in general can manage whatever decision is made. But man, I believe that continuity is important, and I'm just concerned about it.
No doubt. And the Airborne DJ in the Twitch pitch, he says you can't bring Greg back. You just can't. Then again, knowing this federation, they will. Technically, Greg Berhalter, if I could get my upper plate to work this afternoon, is a candidate because his contract ended at the end of the calendar year.
Yes.
That's why you have the substitute teacher in Anthony Hudson right now. So technically, yes, he is a candidate. He is not an incumbent. And that's, once again, we have to sit here and we've got to kind of go through the lines. We've got to go through the lines and make sure that we're on the right lane of traffic here. We can't sit there and weave in and out without using our blinkers here. That he is.
Look, I get it. I get people frustrated, and I understand that. Look, believe me, I can't even say half of the things that I've heard about how this whole thing has damaged and even changed perspectives of players in this national pool. And I'm not talking about, even just the top talent, but just in general. Just even listening to Jesus Ferreira, who is a Greg Berhalter guy. We all know it. You know it. He's the one that gave Ferreira his chance. He had a lot of belief in him. Even he talked about the fact that the biggest thing he feels like damaged everything is how everything came out. So because of that tarnished relationship, look, I understand that Greg cannot be your long-term solution, but you need a patch. And right now you have a small Band-Aid named Anthony Hudson, and I just don't know if that's going to allow just you to bleed out. I'm just concerned about everything you were able to reach, and I'm upset that when we should be talking about where this team is going because of what they did in the World Cup and what could have been, now we're just talking about everything else, plus not knowing where they're even going to be rather than where they're going.
All right, so then who would you have for the new head of El Tri, since we seem to be on national teams down here? What are you looking at for El Tri? It looks like, apparently, and this came out this afternoon on social media, apparently, according to Hercules Gomez, Tuca Ferretti called Alvaro Morales while Football Picante was live to tell him that Miguel Herrera won't be the next Mexican national team coach. Only problem was Ferretti didn't know he was on live TV on Football Picante. That's not really how you want to do things. But if you're the head of El Tri, if you're the head of El Tri, who do you bring in to be the head coach?
That's a good one, man. That's a tough one, and that has Liga MX written all over it. That's if there's an Liga MX equal to it, yeah, that's the one. Look, I like Miguel Herrera. I do. I think he's a guy that rallies behind players, and you might think of him as a rah-rah guy, but he can really manage egos and players, and he's been successful in the past. The only reason why he was let go of the national team was because of the off-the-field issues. So I like him. I would like to say, hey, you know what? Look outside of Mexico and maybe bring in a guy like Alfaro or, El Tigre Gareca, or, someone of that demeanor, because they're good coaches. But every single time that there's a non-Mexican national team head coach, there's so much of a hot seat, and there's so much speculation and so much pressure that I feel like it just doesn't work. Everything's minimized. If he does well in the friendlies and in the qualifiers, like Osorio did. Oh, that doesn't really mean anything. We'll see what happens when things get real. And then when things go bad, then, it's because, he doesn't know Mexican soccer. Da, 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 da. Same thing happened to Tata Martino, who was extremely qualified. So I just think he has to be a Mexican national guy. And the one guy for the job that I think has the guts, has the knowledge of the league and the respect of the players, I think is El Pio Herrera. So call me crazy, but I'll bring that back.
All right, so we'll see how that continues to evolve. It is Thursdays with Niko on a Friday here. El Rolo and W hanging out with us here on the SDH network. All right, let's go to Major League Soccer. And today, probably the worst kept secret in the entire league finally came to pass. Sean Johnson, officially official at Toronto FC. You didn't know if when NYC, and this was also officially official today, when NYCFC brought in Matt Freese, and it could be as much as $800,000 in AM, depending on performance metrics, and there's also a percentage of a sell-on that's attached. Matt Freese gets signed by NYCFC. You're sitting there thinking, okay, that's a 1B. When in turn now, he's the 1A because Sean Johnson, who didn't have any competition in Toronto because of the exits of both Bono and Westberg, Sean Johnson now becomes the number one for Bob Bradley north of the border to try to help out that defense.
I think is what we all knew would happen. You don't hold out this long to a team that you have been a huge component for. He was a New York guy. A lot of these negotiations sometimes go into an ego of a player that feels like he's being disrespected because it's taking this long, and you should be just agreeing with the money aspect, and maybe you should. Guys like Collins and guys like Johnson have been the pillars of this team for years, and they would have gotten nowhere close to those achievements, whether it was Campeones Cup or MLS Cup, without them. So I understand it. And Toronto has the resources, and there you go. I do believe that New York City has a lot of belief in the current goalkeeper, whose name escapes me, in the preseason game just recently they played a couple of weeks ago, I believe. It sounds like they have a lot of belief in what they have there. We all know Citigroup, and they will hold off with what they have. And if they feel the need that things are not working, they're going to pull from that database. They're going to pull from that scouting resources, and they're going to bring somebody else. But as far as I've been able to tell, and speaking to some of those media members who are a lot closer to the team than I am, it sounds like with the new addition and with the current roster, the team feels like they can manage. I am of the belief that this team has been gutted, and regardless of who you bring in, it's going to be difficult to get around the fact that those guys that you've been relying for a very long time are no longer going to be there. When it comes to Cayens, Johnson, Maxi, even Santiago Rodriguez, that had such an important role for this squad. So I believe that there's going to be a reality check to New York City. I think they're too confident in their process, and they're going to get a wake-up call this year, in my opinion.
One of the other names out west, and right now it is it is just it's rumor. It's out there, but but since we are in the window, and we got 4 days left until 7:00 Eastern time, 4:00 out there in the West Coast on the 1st. And Albert Ellis, La Pantera, there is talk about Ellis to LAFC. Yesterday it was announced by our friends at Get France Football News, GFFN, that it was €5 million on the table. It was the asking price. Elise was in Houston, goes to, I think it was Boa Vista. Then he goes to Bordeaux. Then Bordeaux gets relegated, so right now he's in Ligue 2. And so here's somebody else that John Thorrington, possibly, probably, maybe, could be bringing back to Major League Soccer. and it could create a logjam involving dudes that want to put the ball in the back of the net for LAFC, because you would have Chicho Arango, Albert Ellis, and Carlos Vela. And last time I checked, I think they're all kind of on the same spot in the map when it comes to laying out a starting 11. Have you heard anything about Elise returning? And what is your idea on the possibility of Elise returning and John Thorrington once again probably massaging the cap the way that he's done in the past to bring somebody back like Albert Elise?
Okay, two things. Luis Barraza was that goalkeeper I was telling you about in New York City. Secondly, yes, I had heard about Elise. I'm kind of upset that that's already out there. I missed that for sure. And no, I did not see LAFC as one of the candidates for him. So that is news to me. But I do know that his camp, his circle, was very interested in a comeback to MLS. And if LAFC can pull him off, I mean, Elise is a very versatile player. And he could play outside. He could definitely be a guy that you can push out wide and who could come in those inside channels at times. And with a guy like Chicho that is as smart and good on hold up play as he is, I mean, I could see it working, but it'd be surprising, especially for a team that just continues to just add offensive weapons. And the possibility that Cifuentes might be gone, that's something that I'm keeping my eye on, because although you're not hearing anything about it now, there's been so much interest for so many teams in Liga Premier, Eredivisie, and back in South America that, I almost had him as a goner. So I believe this team needs more central pieces and that midfield. Latif was a guy that was doing a lot of roles, and he even started playing at the 8 position. Now he's going as well. So I don't know if I buy that just yet, but I mean, Thornton's so obsessed with the stardom that maybe he just wants to make more noise, man, and just says we're just going to go all on attack, and that's it. But yeah, that'll be interesting. But I do know that Elise, and that's not the only team that's interested in him. That's all I'll say. Okay,
and we'll keep an eye on that as we continue to roll. I know that the team that is closest to you is not you can't just wander. You can wander over to Starfire, but nobody will be there. What's the vibe like as the team is? I believe they're now officially overseas as they're getting ready to try to get acclimated for Club World Cup. What's the overall vibe when it comes to prep for Seattle getting ready for Club World Cup?
I do drive by Starfire because you never know what you might approach. I found some scoops just randomly driving, so I do that, by the way. All but right. Yes, this team is in Marbella, Spain. They are working in conditioning. We spoke to Brian Smesser this morning, and he mentioned that conditioning. That's what you're working on. You're trying to revamp these guys, making sure that they get it. There is some tactical stuff that they've been working on. They have 2 games, 2 preseason games here coming up against Hammerby and then Wolfsburg. That's going to be the 2 games that they'll play on Saturday, almost back to back. He said, I asked him, well, what do you want to accomplish? Once again, he referred to conditioning, and 2, some of those offensive movements and changes that they want to try to apply. So far, so good. There are no injuries, which is the number one aspect for this team to be able to manage. These 2 preseason games, yes, you want to rotate guys, you want to see guys in, you want to get them that game time rhythm, not just fit, but game fit. But you have to be careful because this team has depth, but from one player to another, that drop can be catastrophic. So a guy like JP, it was interesting that Brian said that he's going to feature in one of the games this Saturday to kind of gauge where he's at. When there had been reports, or he did an interview, João Paulo did, where he said that doctors had mentioned that he should wait out 9 months before even start a play. And Brian was asked about that, and he dismissed it. So I want to see where João Paulo's at. I hope that they are careful, and I'm sure that they are going to game manage him. But the team is good. They are ready for this challenge. I love to hear from Christian Roldan that they're trying to stay loose. They had a trivia night this weekend just to kind of get them off just the soccer aspect of it. And I think that's going to be huge because you are playing a one-off game. It's historic, first time for the league, first time for your franchise, but you don't want to go too tense. You have to loosen them up. You got to get some of that nervousness out. They've all played big games. I mean, you're talking about Raul Ruiz, Nicolas Odero, even Christian, right? All these guys have played big time games, but there is going to be a little bit of nervousness. So you got to be able to get these guys loose enough. So it sounds like the staff, Brian Smetzer, and the rest of the coaching staff are handling that part well.
All right, last question for you this week. Since we are 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 4 days away from the window closing, or whenever February 1st is, 4 or 5 days. It all runs together for me right now. Who else are you looking at as movers and shakers? Who is standing pat? Who might be losing out? Who are your pluses, your minuses, and your flatliners as we get close to the end of the January window here for Major League Soccer? Who are you looking at?
As far as I know, the window opened late and will close late. So I believe May is when it'll close. So you might see more than you think of.
Right, yeah. I'm just saying,
I know that's changed.
From the European sense for possible European transfers into Major League Soccer. We know that the MLS window is May, but for the European,
gotcha.
The European window closes February 1st. What are you looking at possibly from this part of the world to that part of the world when it's just going to shut down in February?
Yeah, no, it'll be interesting of where it's at. There's been quite a few reports from Atlanta and getting some guys out of Europe, of course. It'll be interesting how that plays out. I don't foresee too many changes other than, maybe teams like Austin FC that have also been linked with guys out in Europe. But I do know that a lot of this stuff might be getting done and ready before that window closes, and then it will get released or revealed after that. So I do think that there's going to be quite a few players that might be coming in. I'm more interested about the guys going out. Like I mentioned, Cifuentes, and how viable is he going to be out and leaving? A lot of loans that also have been approached, and once again, I can't really reveal a lot of it because I'm still trying to get some information on it, but there might be some loans out from some teams out west here that could be going into European teams. So that component I'm trying to think of and seeing how that plays out.
All right. So what's going on with SoccerBar these days, and what's going on with Pulso Sports as you are covering the Club World Cup from afar and having to get up way early in the morning for practice sessions as they're getting Seattle's getting ready to play?
Yeah, so I'm gonna do a teaser. We want to try to do maybe a reaction show and see how that plays out. We haven't done that, but we're thinking about doing a reaction show where we're watching the game and allow people to engage with us. That's going to be, of course, for the game on the 4th, once we figure out who this Sounders team will face. But coming up in the next couple of weeks, we do have a couple of one-on-ones that we're trying to get set up. Communication has been difficult, of course, because of where they are and trying to get guys on. I don't mind getting up early for a one-on-one interview. So we're just trying to get green lights from the club. But we will have a couple of those coming on. I'm almost certain that before the 1st, when they will travel from Spain to Morocco, we'll have a couple of those interviews up on our website. We're also doing a good follow-up of the U.S. men's national team playing Colombia. We just pulled up a interview with Christian Arango, and where he talks about his other chance with Colombia and MLS growth and things of that nature. So all in Spanish, though. Do check that out in Pulso Sports. And then in SoccerBar, as always, Mondays and Thursdays, we're doing a full recap of everything that has to do with MLS and the U.S. men's national team as well. So there you have it.
All right. So then let me ask you this. We were discussing the idea of possibly bringing in Elise to LAFC and creating a logjam. Do you think it's a logjam? Do you think if a player that fits that position, whether it's Elise or otherwise, and I apologize, we're going into added time. If a player of Elise's type ends up with LAFC, does that create a logjam for you? Does somebody leave, or do you think everybody's happy? Is there enough of a soccer ball to go around with all of that firepower with LAFC?
No, I think you'd have to figure it out. I mean, if you're thinking about the future and moves like that, I mean, you're never in a logjam. You're always thinking ahead. What's going to happen with Vela? Where is he's at? You also got to encounter the fact that he's been injury prone. So where are you going to move him? Who's going to work better with Chicho? And what's really going to happen on the other wing? Or can they play together? I always say, whenever you can have talent of that caliber, I think you go out and get it. There aren't a lot of players that have the speed, the burst, the niftiness, and the goal scoring ability that Elise can have. Maybe you haven't seen that at max capacity over the last couple of years, but I think he still got the juice. So, yeah, I think that it doesn't create a log. It just gives you options. That's the way I like to think about it. That said, I'm a big believer in resources to necessities. And I'll go again. I don't think LAFC needs any more help in the final third. They need help at center mid. They need help building out. They need players that are going to be able to have a little bit of a dual role, thinking about what they have and what they might not have in the summer.
No doubt about it. And Mine's one of our late viewers coming in, a big fan of TFC, Porto, Bayern, and Club Bruges. So Mine's welcome to Thursdays with Niko on a Friday, and this is kind of what we do. We try to figure out when late in the week we can bring Niko Moreno from Pulso Sports and the Sports Bar to hang out with us to discuss things from a Western perspective. Since traditionally during the season we ask you to come in bright and early on a Thursday morning, we figure when it's not in season, let you sleep in a little bit and come and hang out with us on a weekly basis. But Mine's welcome. Thanks to you, and thanks to everybody who comes in and crashes on a weekly basis. Niko, my friend, it's great to catch up with you. We will catch up with you on the flip side of the European transfer window and see who is still being driven crazy. We will catch up with you again next week, my friend.
Yeah, we'll see. We might have some Atlanta news next week, so we'll check it out.
See what he said. So there you go. Mucho plata, y'all. Thanks for hanging out. Play it safe. And since it's the end of the show, that means we get to do this. We'll see you next week.